much. So, as said, I'm part of the IBM division related to what we call data and AI, so really managing everything related to data management, governance of it, specifically focusing on data privacy and GDPR. And as you see here on the first slide and the second slide, I'm not a lawyer, so I have absolutely no right to tell you any legal advice. I will just talk about my personal feelings around it, but provide you with insights on the technological part around how to cope with AI, how to cope with privacy and compliance, using capabilities, functions, and tools to support that. So long for the legal advice from it. So definitely, as said, both by my predecessor from Bayer and other companies and presentations, we see a lot of trends coming up in the market, technological trends coming up. It was big data a couple of years ago. Now it's related to the cloud computing, or artificial intelligence. Those are basically very interesting and promising technologies or use cases. But the problem is they then face the new regulations and the compliance needed coming from GDPR, POPI, and all the HIPAA and all those regulations depending on the industry. So how to make these two together, work together, because if you talk to a data scientist, he'll want to have everything they can, everything stored, whatever the timing, whatever the sensitivity, to play with it. But if you talk to the regulators or the compliance teams, they want to limit the access to the data. And they will tell you as well, I want to use an artificial intelligence, and to be able to drive my models around artificial intelligence, I need data. Okay, but which type of data? Can I use it? Can I not use it? Do I need a consent for it? All these type of topics coming to play. And even more with AI, you want to automate a lot of processes. And by automating, you then reach the Article 22, for instance, in GDPR, saying that if there is an automated processing, you need to be able to provide insights on why and how those decisions were made to the subjects. So how do you make these two work together? Basically, and maybe I'm selling my own turf here, but because I'm coming from the information management part of the business, but definitely to be able to drive those new technologies and use them the best way possible in your organization, you really need to understand where the data resides, where is it used, how do I gather it, what are the associated profiles and rules that are needed to be put in place. In short, information architecture, topology, where is the data? Is it in the cloud? Is it on my systems? Which systems? Is there any geographical limitations that I have to cope with from a regulatory standpoint and stuff like that? So information architecture and the whole set of practices around it is very critical, while keeping a link with the business owners. And I really enjoyed your speech about making the link with IT on one side and the business side. It's really critical to have those two together if you want to have a successful implementation of new solutions, new technologies, while still being able to be compliant, basically. Now, that is linked to new technologies, so no compliance without comprehensive end-to-end information architecture. Some of our colleagues are saying no artificial intelligence without being able to, you can't use it if you don't have that information architecture. Now, AI is no magic. You need to be able, you need to cope with it, not just playing in a small part of your organization, but you really need to embrace it across the organization, but you also need to put it in a structured way. How do I build my models, to my predictive models to serve better my customers or enhance my supply chain in my organization? These type of things need to be coped with from an organizational standpoint, in a step-by-step approach. You don't just give the data and play with it. One fellow of MIT Sloan was saying, whatever the amount of work you put in building your predictive models or AI models, if the data is not correct, if you don't understand it, your result will be bad anyway. So really understanding it and having a step-by-step approach by a little bit like in GDPR, basically doing the discovery of where the data resides, then understanding what are the associated policies and rules that needs to be taken care of. Do I can I keep it? How long can I keep it? What can I do with it? To be able then to operationalize the analytical models around it is really critical. So it's really a step-by-step approach. Tools are there and are needed, but tools are just an enabler for business problems and directions that are needed to be put in place. Now, as also said, in any compliancy or regulatory environments, doing something is good, but monitoring it and monitoring the evolution of it is even more critical. So basically putting in place an enterprise platform and processes to cope with all the life cycle of the information, trying to make sense of the data across it to try to eliminate the barriers. Maybe you don't need to cope with the data or store the data in multiple places. Maybe you just want to have it in one place. No real one solution or one framework is good enough, but you need to cope it holistically across your organization. To then be able to govern, when we talk governance and information governance in this matter, it's really about the whole life cycle of the information from creation to usage to retirement of the information, coming back to GDPR data minimization, for instance. And it's really trying to operationalize the insights as quickly as possible. And the better you understand the data, the closer you will get and the faster you will be able to use them, and while being compliant with the regulators. Now, the step-by-step approach around artificial intelligence, IBM has come up with a concept of the AI ladder. It might be a very nice marketing concept, but still is very important and very structured approach. Basically, you first want, and it's the same with GDPR, you first want to understand what data you want to have or you have in the organization by analyzing and organizing that data in a business fashion, not just technical fashion. Being in a database is nice, being in a file system is nice, but really understand what the behind the scene is. What does it mean for my company? Is it personal data? Is it organizational data? Is it financial data? All these type of business concepts is really critical to then be able to analyze. And what we call infusion is really the operationalization of artificial intelligence. Operationalization meaning I can use it in my processes to really make sense out of things and have my processes run more efficiently. All these steps, either you build them by yourself, you have integration tools, you have cataloging of tools, you use Excel or any other tools, and then you have data science tools, and data scientists love the open source technologies. All this you can build by yourself, or you can also provide a platform to it that is aimed at the business users, so making sure that they can reach the data instead of making sense of a field name or a text document that has absolutely no structure. Understanding what it is from a business standpoint allows them to dive deeper and faster into trying to find information from it. So it's either you build it step by step, or you try to build a platform to ensure that with the connectivity from that platform, you can either get access to the data, move the data, but still be able to organize the information so that it's structured and accessible to the business users, because basically everything is driven by the business, so business needs to understand and get access to the data the quickest and the easiest way and the more intelligible way possible. And now, that is previously only in systems what technical guys or IT guys would say on-premise, so inside your company, but more and more this is evolving towards a cloud environment. You saw the Facebooks, the Googles of these worlds, Amazon, all these, and even IBM, providing cloud platforms and the data residing inside those clouds. So it is good to have ways to connect and analyze the data inside your premises, but it becomes more and more important also to be able to do the discovery and do the mapping and the cataloging of everything related to the cloud. Now, the problem with the cloud, or the beauty of the cloud, is it can be very dispersed, and what costs in the cloud is not the storage per se, or it costs, but that's not the main cost. The main cost is the transactions, the processing power that you do on the cloud, and also basically the pipelines or the bandwidth to get access to the data in the cloud. So the closer you are to the data, the better it is, but you need the interaction. So it's a balance to find between that. So either you connect and have very good insights from the cloud themselves, or you try to use statistical models for doing discovery on a small subset, so you limit the cost for you, but you still have a relevant view of the criticality or where the problems might reside in your cloud environments, to then decide from a strategy standpoint, where do I start for cleaning or for working on my compliancy. Because basically, the trend you see here for the moment is everybody is moving to cloud, and cloud can mean a lot of things now, because you have public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud. Is it on-prem, not on-prem? Is it just the technology, or is it a provider? These type of things are evolving. Still, depending on the industry, some are too much regulated and you cannot go to the cloud for some of them. For some others, you see the trend evolving. I was talking to some intelligence companies in the UK, and basically 5 years ago they were not happy with the T's and C's from cloud providers, but they moved everything from an analytics standpoint, looking against terrorism and fraud, into the cloud. Now it's possible, but T's and C's, managing the risk and those aspects has evolved tremendously, but still, it's a slow process to move everything to the cloud. So you need to be able to cope with this interim situation where some of your data and applications are in the cloud, some others are not. And looking at the numbers, you see, and sometimes hidden, so many, 94% of the companies use multiple clouds even without knowing. You use Slack, you use Dropbox, you use Office 365. These might be three different vendors behind the scene. You don't know it's in the cloud. You don't even know where it's physically located. Is it in your geo or not in your geo? Is it in scope for the Cloud Act? Is it just GDPR that is to be taken into account? So being able to cope with that diverse environment is critical to make sure that you build your strategy, but still are able to allow your company to innovate or to become more efficient across the board, basically. Now, from this slide, the main driver, and while IBM has created, has a number of solutions, and that's not my point here, to cope with GDPR or data privacy regulations, my main focus here is really to talk about when you want to do something and use those technology, don't try to boil the ocean, focus on really business-oriented problems. Would that be to avoid being in jail or having problems with the regulations, or try to make more money? Like I say, business case-driven projects is critical. If you don't have a business case behind it, it will never work. And simplifying everything, you have three possible business cases. Either you want to make more money, or you want to avoid being in jail, or you want to lower the costs. It's one of the three, simplifying everything. So focusing and prioritizing your projects should be driven by the three. But don't look at data privacy or the regulations like GDPR as just a cost because you have to do it. It can also be a driver for new opportunities, new projects that can derive value from it. Would that be even just looking at data minimization from an IT perspective? Less space, lower the cost. By knowing your customers better, you will be able to serve them better. One of the things that needs to be done in GDPR is understanding the information about the customer, because for the data subject rights, you need to be able to capture that. So all these type of initiatives driven by a compliancy project should also be looked at from a revenue generation or cost avoidance perspective. And the tools here shouldn't be the disruptors of those initiatives, should be the enablers of those initiatives to make sure that those platforms or those different set of tools provide additional value to drive this strategy forwards, helping business to work better and more efficiently in your company. Now, these will be the two only slides, and I'm a technical background, so I need to provide some architectural slides with some technicality. Don't worry, not too much, and you have some terms, don't be scared too much, like Kubernetes and stuff. But really, we we have built, and these will be the only tools kind of slides of my presentation, but we have worked for the past so many years on providing efficient platforms for all these different separate bits and pieces, like the connection and the understanding of your data, being able to connect to those sources and expand and be able to derive what the business meaning of these are, collecting, organizing the data, classifying the data. Is it sensitive data? Is it personal data? Is it just traditional data that can be stored somewhere else? To be able then to provide these from a business standpoint in an efficient manner for analyzing. That's where, from an insights or analytics perspective, we provide these capabilities for data scientists to really use the data. Would it be physically stored in the system or just virtualized, staying where they are? You don't want to move everything from the cloud back into on-prem just for doing the analytics. This platform is then provided to ensure lineage and documentation and visibility and auditability of where the data resides, where did it come from, what did I do or how did I build my analytical models from it, and where are they used afterwards. Providing the enterprise catalog and the lineage between all these different components allows you from a compliancy perspective to have traceability, visibility, transparency, and make sure that if anybody has an automated decision made on him for a new claim or for a new contract, that basically you can come back to the history and understand how this decision was made. Just, again, to comply with some of the aspects of these regulations. So this is really a platform. Now, we are Big Blue, we are IBM, so we provide a lot of capabilities, but we know we are not the only ones in the world providing capabilities, so that's why this type of platform should be also not locking you into a technology. We provide capabilities, but the platform is also built a little bit like the iPhone is built. You provide a platform and capabilities where partners are then adding their own capabilities to the platform, using those capabilities underlying, like the governance or the classification, to then surface from a business standpoint those capabilities through their particular systems, basically. So it's really coping with the whole platform, the heterogeneous environments, and ensuring that the data is visible from a business user. One of the things we talk more and more is business-ready data. It's not just data, it is something that can be consumed by the business users, and providing it as seamlessly as possible while staying into the boundaries of the compliancy. And I'll come back to the same slide as before, just with my AI comment on top. As a summary slide, really, please don't look at things in a siloed way inside your organization or divisions, but really look at it holistically to make use of the data and reuse across the organization on one hand, but also making sure that by understanding where the data resides, how it flows, that you don't forget some silos in your organization from a compliancy perspective. And that was it. Any questions? Because I think I might have some time for questions.
We have 5 minutes on the clock.
Yep.
Thank you very much for this very insightful presentation. Questions, please. And we'll be giving you a microphone, so you'll also be able to make use of the automated translation.
Is it on? Yeah. Hi, my name is Lisa Sam. I'm from SAP. And I have a question with regards to the platform. How do you make sure that the companies leveraging this platform do not upload unethical data to your platform, maybe even illegal data, and following through the line, even build unethical models, illegal models? Who follows up on that? Who's responsible for this? Who prosecutes the same? So a lot of questions there. How do you make sure?
So there are multiple aspects related to that. One is we provide that platform, so it's provided as a service. People, and it's, if you read my disclaimer slides, and almost nobody outside of lawyers are reading it, but still you'll see that companies still are responsible of following the regulations while using it. So we provide boundaries within the capabilities, and the solution itself or the platform itself allows companies to support and be compliant, but it is developed with privacy by design, privacy by default as capabilities. But then what customers do with it, would it be on the cloud or on premises, still is their responsibility. It's a little bit like you want to use a word and you want to write down a false letter to someone. Microsoft is not liable for what you put in the Word document. It's the same here. You build the models, we store the models, but the people or the data scientists that have built the models are the ones responsible for the ethical aspect of it. Now, to complement on that, IBM and other cloud vendors and AI vendors is part of a working group to add ethic capabilities to the AI models to make sure that whatever the AI has been deciding to find out or to use as data or as outcome, that it also goes through a filter from an ethical standpoint to cope with that same question. So it's twofold. We've provided a platform that can be used for a lot of purposes, but on the other hand, we are also working from an AI modeling or AI engine perspective to add an ethical layer to it that then can also be customized, because the way you would consider something ethical or not within a company compared to another company of the same industry can be different, and even in the same company, depending on the location, can also be different. So it's a layer that will be able to be customized as well for specific usage. I hope I answered your question. Kind of. Yeah. No, I don't say it's easy. Ethics. And again, I'm coming back to my first point. I'm not a lawyer, but definitely not being a lawyer and having to cope and having learned a lot about GDPR, the interpretation of things makes it complicated. Ethics is the same thing for me. Any other
more questions? That is not the case, so I guess we can give everybody 120 seconds of their time back. Thank you very, very much for being with us today.